Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars The Clone Wars episode review. This one's going to be for Season 7 Episode 4, which is called Unfinished Business. So this is the last episode of the Bad Batch arc, meaning that we're finally going to start some properly new content next week with what I assume is going to be the first episode of the sort of Ahsoka arc, where she's sort of on her own. This is her figuring stuff out on her own post-season 5 arc. That's going to transition us from her leaving to, I suppose, her return. So definitely what everyone I think has been waiting for, finally coming next week, with us getting to see Ahsoka for the first time in Season 7. And for the first time since Season 5 as well, so that's kind of important. As for this arc, I think now that it's all out there in full, it's not just, everyone has seen the full arc through the unfinished episodes. I think it's clear enough to most people. Like, this arc was fine. It was good. But it wasn't one of the special Clone Wars arcs. It wasn't one of the best arcs we've had in the show. And that's what I think makes it feel so weird here, that they decided to start off with this, that this was one of the arcs they decided to include in the final season of the Clone Wars, was one that we'd already seen before, and one that ultimately isn't the most impactful arc at all. And in a way, like, especially with the way that they did the ending here, it felt especially kind of like, okay, you changed that from the unfinished episode, and it almost makes the arc not feel as important. So, I suppose that's the first thing to really get into, is that, like, over the course of these 4 episodes, we saw probably, like, one scene change per episode different than the unfinished episodes. The most notable one in the first 3 episodes was, of course, them taking out the scene of them discussing the sort of Padme art on the ship and replaced it with a full-on Anakin and Padme scene. That was very cool. That was one of the highlights of the trailer. And in this episode, they changed the ending scene. In the unfinished episode, what happens is that, they basically have the medal ceremony, and it's like Rex, the Bad Batch, and Echo lined up. They get their medals. All the other troopers are like, yeah, shouting out for the Bad Batch, like, finally, like, everyone is praising them and so on. And it just ends like that. They kind of focus in on Echo, they focus in on Echo first, then they cut to Rex. They play a little bit of sort of like Imperial music to sort of, tease the idea of like, oh, we're getting close to Revenge of the Sith, are things going some sort of a different way? And it just ends. There's no real resolution to Echo, he's just there. In this episode, what they actually do is that they basically set up the idea of the medal ceremony, which is going to happen later. But then Hunter asks Echo, basically, if you feel you need to be part of the team, you can become part of the Bad Batch. He basically notes that with your arm and like what happened to you, you're like us, one of these kind of deformed or changed clones. You're different now. Why not join us? And you think, in part because of the way that they did the unfinished episodes, I was convinced that he's probably going to go over, say goodbye to the Bad Batch, and come back over to Rex. But Rex actually just says that, like, it's up to you. If that's where you feel you belong, that's where you belong. And he goes over and seemingly joins the Bad Batch, which is fine. Like, I get it. It's continuing Echo's arc in a way, but because I get the impression we're more than likely not going to return to the Bad Batch unless we see them during the Siege of Mandalore. It does feel a bit weird, like the way it ended, of like, wait, is there another arc that we're meant to see where the Bad Batch comes back and Echo's part of the team? Or what? Because the whole arc, in a way, the whole emotional core of the arc is that, it's about Rex and his connection to his brothers and like some of the notable clones that we've lost along the way. And the the ones that we followed over the course of the series was Domino Squad, including, Fives and Echo, I suppose, primarily. And so there's a significance to getting Echo back. That was like the early part of this arc, was about the, Rex putting himself on the line to get Echo back, and, making sure that they save Echo, kind of redeems himself in a way. They got across in like the last episode this idea of like, oh, you left him behind. You left Echo behind. Of course, that's why you want to get him back. But they're really emphasizing on Rex's side that he cares and he wants Echo back so badly. And then we get him back, and in this episode they try and tease this idea of the Bad Batch suspects that Echo might still be sort of under the control of the Techno Union or the Separatists, that he could betray them at any moment, basically. Now, they didn't hit it too hard. They just kind of said it a few times. No one got particularly mad about it being brought up. It was just like, we trust Echo's going to be on our side, but just in case, sort of thing. And it was like, okay, fine. But they weren't really going to do anything with it. They weren't going to set up some sort of Echo betrayal. We're in the last episode of the arc. There was just no time to do anything like that. Writing-wise, it just wasn't going to work. So all you had to do was, again, show Echo putting himself on the line, coming up with a clever plan that worked in their favor, and that's basically what exactly they did. And it worked because, of course, the plot of the episode here, again, is, an axis. We return to where we were in like the first episode, that this is the core of the arc. It's this battle on an axis. Trench was using Echo and the strategies that Echo remembers from Rex to come up with this algorithm to counter all the Republic's attacks. Now that we got Echo back, we can use Echo to sort of basically use the way the Separatists were using him to their advantage by, okay, Echo, do what you're expected to do, except give him bad tactical counterattacks. So we're in command and can like counter-attack, basically. And it works. Echo does some pretty cool stuff. He like sends a high-powered signal that takes out all the droids and so on. And that's pretty much it. Along the way, of course, they get across the idea of this bomb plot. Admiral Trench, of course, is the one in command, and Anakin goes after Trench. So one of the other key scenes in the episode, of course, is Anakin confronting Trench. They've, of course, previously had the confrontation primarily ship to ship. Now they actually get to confront each other one-on-one. He was always only just a fairly minor villain, one of the more memorable Separatist commanders, but still just a sort of tactician guy, never anyone too, fancy or important. So Anakin just basically walks in there, takes out all the droids. Trench, of course, now has some mechanical parts, so he has a few tricks. And it seems like he gets the advantage over Anakin, but Anakin basically just powers through, cuts off his arms, and in the end, gets the last part of the code to give to Mace Windu, and ends up killing Trench when Trench uses another one of his tricks to try and get the advantage. So Trench is killed here. Notable moment. It was basically meant to just get across the idea of like, Anakin, this is Anakin's character. He's willing to do these sort of darker things that pretty much none of the other Jedi would do. Now, I didn't entirely see this as a full dark side kind of moment, because they needed that code really quick, and Anakin was ultimately the perfect character to get it done. I think Trench was able to see that this isn't a Jedi he should mess with and use their Jedi code to his advantage. It wasn't going to work here, and especially when like Anakin killing Trench is ultimately in self-defense. Like, you don't really see it as a dark moment, more so than just like, yes, this is the aspect of Anakin's personality that gives you that sense that, it could go this way more than anything. So they had to have a moment like this in here somewhere, but notably it's the end of Trench's arc. He's killed here for sure. We see him die, and then of course the ship he's on blows up. So fair enough. The one thing that I think stood out in this episode especially was just that, once again, the Bad Batch themselves, probably one of the weaker parts of the episode. Not that they're bad or anything, it's just they're doing the exact same thing with them in this episode that they did in all of the other episodes. Crosshairs is the sniper guy, does some cool stuff. Wrecker is the wrecking ball and just, smashes through everyone. Tech is the tech guy. And, Hunter is the leader of the Bad Batch. And they use them all in that exact same way. And that's all they did with the Bad Batch over the course of this arc, was purely get across they have unique special abilities, a very minor undercurrent of like deformed clones, modified clones versus regular clones, and then they are slightly distrustful of Echo in this episode, but it's not really a major plot point. That's all they had. And it really highlighted that, it's the Bad Batch arc, but really it's the like return of Echo arc more than anything. But then that doesn't even work so well because, like, who knows when we'll see Echo again, if we'll get to see Echo again. Whereas, at least if they had said just, like, Echo joins up with Rex again at the end, he decides against the Bad Batch, then you'd pretty much know Echo is going to be part of the Siege of Mandalore because he'd be part of the 501st. But he joins the Bad Batch, which I doubt we'll see again. But again, like I said, maybe there is a potential that they do show up in the Siege of Mandalore or in one of the next arcs or whatever. We'll see what happens. It's just, overall, this arc, what does it add to the Clone Wars that we sort of didn't have before? And in the grand scheme of things, all it accomplished was that Echo's alive. That's it. I don't really feel they did anything inherent with his character that much. It's just, for Rex, it's sort of a notable thing that he was able to, for once, save one of his clones that he felt he had lost. One of his friends is back, and while, he's taken a different path now, Rex is just happy to know that he's back. That was really all this arc was there to accomplish, really. And so, my final thoughts, in a way, on the arc are ultimately just that it's another one of these Clone Wars arcs that is good, but didn't need to be this many episodes. Like, this arc did not need to be 4 episodes long. I think, like a lot of them, this one probably could have been cut down to 3, or even 2 episodes if you really wanted to. I think the ultimate, like, what does this arc accomplish, to me, is maybe 2 episodes worth of content. I think what they should have done is basically combined Anaxis and Skeko Minor into basically the same planet, and just have like Echo be on the same planet that the battle is on. That way you avoid having to sort of leave and come back, which extends the arc kind of needlessly. And you pretty much just have the first episode be, introduction of Bad Batch, discovery of Echo, and then the second arc is, freeing Echo / fight out and victory. That's where, like, okay, maybe that's 2 or 3 episodes, but it's certainly not 4 episodes of content. And I think that's the clearest thing to say, in that you look at earlier seasons of the Clone Wars. We've had smaller arcs, even individual episodes, that I think accomplished in a way more than something like this one. Like an episode like, say, Massacre, or even The Lair of Grievous, the kind of Kit Fisto, Nadar Veb episode. I felt like did so much in just one episode compared to what this was able to do over the course of 4. Like I said, I don't want to be overly critical because it still was enjoyable. It is still very good Clone Wars. It's just, we are in the last season, we're only getting like 12 episodes, and this was 4 of them. This was a third of our final season. We'd already seen the episodes before, and the changes that they made didn't add too much. Pretty much the main addition was just the Padme scene, which was very good, but it doesn't make up for overall this being a kind of relatively weak arc in the context of what our expectation levels were going into this season. So, I like the clones, and I like a lot of the clone arcs, but this was nowhere near the level of the 5's Order 66 arc in terms of importance, or even previous arcs that focused on the clones, like Umbara or stuff like that. It had glimmer and like flashes of kind of brilliance, but overall nothing too incredible going on. So yeah, we're moving on now to Ahsoka, and I think my main hopes for this arc is just that they don't have whatever like plot Ahsoka ends up sort of encountering, getting involved in the kind of underbelly of Coruscant. I hope they don't let that plot get in the way of the fact that what everyone wants is the Ahsoka character arc. I hope that they always stick to, over the, I suppose, 4 episodes that this arc is going to be before we get into the final arc, they always focus on Ahsoka's character, addressing the fact that she's left, what will bring her back, what she's thinking about, what she's mulling over, what she has to figure out on her own now that she's not part of the Jedi Order. That's what I want the focus to be, and not like a minor touching on it across 4 episodes that are otherwise Ahsoka just involved in some kind of underworld stuff. Like, because there is definitely a chance that this is another 4 episodes of just stuff happening, and it's good because Ahsoka's there, but we're not doing the important Ahsoka stuff. This arc really is your opportunity to delve deep into the character of Ahsoka, and that's what they need to do. So, they're my expectations for the next arc, given that we basically know nothing about it. So, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on episode 4, the end of the Bad Batch arc, and just overall what your thoughts were on this as the first arc of season 7. But yeah, they're my thoughts. In the comments, let me know what yours are. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.